to agenda item 3, and that is members' declaration of interest. Are there any declarations of interest from members? I see no declarations of interest. Agenda item 4, notifications of requests to address the meeting. I have a list here. We will go through them as we reach those relevant items on the agenda. Moving swiftly on to agenda item 5, and that is the Keyways Housing Allocation Scheme review. I'd like to invite Councillor Trevor Conway to address the meeting as Chair of the Place and Environmental Scrutiny Committee. Thank you, Trevor.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, everyone. Item 5, housing policy. So this item came to scrutiny in September, and it is vitally important to note in the report that current demand for NNC housing far outstrips current supply and is further growing at an unsustainable level, with a 129% increase from April 22 to April 25. The current monthly average number of new applications is 560. This increase is not specific to North Northampton Council, but is reflected nationally. However, we have to, by law, have a scheme for determining priorities and procedures when allocating social or affordable housing. The report makes sense to potentially remove Band E, which, if you are allocated to this band, you have next to zero chance of actually being allocated a property. The report also states that those residents currently allocated to Band E will be offered support and advice to look into other schemes and options that will offer better potential solutions to those residents. Scrutiny Committee, following the report, would like to recommend we'd like to see feedback from a wider consultation. This consultation will need to be pushed by officers and councillors across the whole chamber to get as much input from the residents who will be affected by the proposed changes. If the changes do go ahead, we've also requested that a post-implementation review process be presented to assess the effectiveness of the new scheme, should it go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. And now I'd like to invite Councillor Mark Pengelly to address the meeting. Councillor Pengelly, you have a maximum of 3 minutes to make your statement. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And there is a lot in the report that is really good, but it's not for me to talk about that. I'm sure that the Executive Member of Housing will do that. The issues I want to talk about is where the people I represent will be affected, and 3,000 people in Corby, well, 3,000 people in North Northampton will be coming off the housing list. And a lot of these are couples, and looking at the table today, I think a lot of us started off our relationships by living with mum and dad. You were saving up for your fridges, your freezers, your three-piece suites and whatever, and at the same time you're looking for a home that you can afford. But it's difficult to find a home you can afford right now. Mortgages are sky high and private rents are sky high, and the only alternative for some is council housing. And taking couples off council housing will cause problems in the future, because what will happen is, in any relationship where you're living with mum and dad or your mother and father-in-law to be, you fall out. And these people will be coming to us as homeless people in the future. And that is something we need to tackle now, because if not, there will be a problem that they'll be having. And I do understand the issues that we have as a council, but we were let down by the last Tory administration in North Northampton, where I can't see any plans for new housing taking place, new council housing. Corby Borough Council built hundreds of council housing, and I hope the Reform Council look at doing this in the future. The new Labour government are putting policies forward for us to build new council housing, and what we have to do is find land to build these houses. That's what we've got to do, and I can't see anything happening now, and it's something we've got to do. For the people who work in our council housing department, it must be really, really difficult, because you've got so many people trying to get housing. But taking people off the list is not always the answer. Let's look at alternatives to this. The other thing that we need to look at is settled communities. I live in Corby, and I want my daughter, who's bought a house, but you'd want your daughter and your family to live as close to you as possible. But because of the housing policy we've got right now, people in Wellingborough are classed as the same as people in Corby when it comes to getting a house in Corby. People in Corby are classed as the same as people in Wellingborough when it's getting a house in Wellingborough. There should be local connections. We used to have it in the past where if you lived locally, you had more chance of getting a house in Corby than if somebody came from outside. Northamptonshire has grown, so everybody is now part of that localism. What happens if we then become part of a greater Northamptonshire unitary that the government are on about 500,000? Then Northampton becomes part of Corby. So that's something that we have to look at going forward as well, Chair. So as I said, there's a lot of good things in this report, but also things that we have to address. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. And I'm sure that Councillor Pengelly will encourage his residents to respond to the consultation when it comes forward. Thank you for that. I'd now like to invite Lynn Buckingham to address the meeting. Lynn, you have a maximum of 3 minutes to make your statement.
Thank you, and good morning, everybody. Chair, members, this morning's recommendation asks you to approve a 6 weeks consultation on the new Keyways housing allocation scheme. On the face of it, that sounds routine, but before you nod it through, I'd ask you to recognise the weaknesses already built into the draft. Because if we go out to consultation with blind spots this serious, we risk undermining confidence before the process even starts. The current draft narrows access and priority rules in ways that could disadvantage disabled people, carers, older residents and survivors of domestic abuse. The equality screening attached to this report is a single page, no depth, no cumulative analysis. That's not compliance with the Equalities Act 2010, it's a potential breach of it. There is no clear route for existing tenants whose needs change through disability or family circumstances. Carers are penalised by strict local connection rules. Domestic abuse survivors aren't given guaranteed rehousing or Band-Aid status. And the whole thing assumes everyone can apply and bid online, ignoring digital exclusion entirely. These are not technical quibbles, they are fundamental fairness issues. Under the July 2025 statutory guidance and the new regulatory of social housing standards, councils must now demonstrate transparency, accessibility and equality of opportunity in allocation decisions. On current form, this scheme risks non-compliance from day one. So yes, let the 6-week consultation proceed, but let's be honest about where the weaknesses lie and make sure that the consultation is genuine, inclusive and evidence-driven. Making sure paper and phone access routes are built in from the start, positively reaching out to groups affected, carers, disabled tenants, domestic abuse survivors, older residents, and not just expecting them to find us online. Because a consultation that doesn't reach the most affected isn't consultation. Sorry, I do apologise for that. Isn't consultation, it's choreography. Let's make sure that this 6 weeks exercise isn't about just ticking the box, but about fixing the flaws. Otherwise, we'll only be consulting on a policy already unfit for purpose. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Lynn. I'd now like to invite Dorothy Maxwell to address the meeting. Dorothy, you have a maximum of 3 minutes to make your statement.
Good morning. If the press are listening, I hope that they take notice and listen to my concerns. An increase in the waiting list, housing waiting list, does not mean eliminating 3,000 people from the waiting list. Have you ever lived in a one-bedroom house, sharing a kitchen and bathroom with 4 or 5 others? Well, I have, and it's not great. Today, the rent from private sector is £995 per month in Kettering for a 2-bedroom. And if you're on minimal wage, the time you paid your rent, gas, electric, what are you left with? Not a lot. You have to wait a long time for council accommodation. But things change, and may be lucky and get a place. But to eliminate people from the list means that they have no hope. The government may in future give more money from the proceeds of council houses that have been sold, or require developers to build more. This consultation is likely to be a waste of time and money, and no notice will be taken of the outcome. How much will it cost? Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much for that, Mrs. Maxwell. I'd now like to invite David Watts, the Executive Director for Adults, Health, Partnerships and Housing, to introduce the report. David.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to all the speakers for their comments. Before I introduce the report, if I could just answer some of those comments, because I think there are answers to a number of the points made. Councillor Pengelly, you talked about couples being removed from the list. However, if I bring your attention to section 3.2 of the report, and bullet point 7, single and couple households will qualify to bid on up to 1-bedroom properties only. So they're not being removed from the list, but a couple will not be able to apply, for example, for a 2-bedroom property. Lynn, you talked about domestic abuse and people being removed from the list. Bullet point 5 in the same section 3.2 sets out that domestic abuse victims with a connection to Northamptonshire will be awarded the highest band of A, and all other victims from other areas will be awarded a band D unless another homeless duty applies. So it has been considered in the proposals that we have. And Mrs. Maxwell, in the same section 3.2, bullet point 6, an additional overcrowding criterion will be introduced in band A, so again the highest band, to address cases of severe overcrowding, so in properties that lack 2+ bedrooms. So in circumstances where people are living in crowding and they meet that band A criteria, they would meet the highest criteria if there were insufficient bedrooms, as in less than two bedrooms. So on to introducing the report. The Keyways housing scheme has been reviewed following changes in government guidance and as part of the regular cycle of reviews that local authorities undertake of their policies and procedures. The report sets out the proposed changes to the scheme and seeks permission from the Executive to undertake a 6-week consultation with residents and other stakeholders. Whilst I'll take the report as read, I would like to draw the Executive's attention to section 3.2 of the report that summarises the proposed changes. In particular, I would like to highlight bullet points 1, 3 and 5 that will be of particular interest. Bullet point 1 removes the criteria that allows people that have no housing need as defined by the legislation to be admitted to the housing register. This accounts for a significant proportion of the number which Councillor Pengelly referred to. So people apply to be on our housing register despite not having a housing need. We have to admit them at the moment because our criteria says we will accept them and put them on the lowest criterion. Bullet point 3 sets out our proposed approach to supporting care experienced young people, where the council is the corporate parent for those young people. They will receive a band A, the highest band, which is higher than the current band, which is a band B. And all other care leavers from other areas in the country, a band D will be applied. For bullet point 5, a similar criteria will be applied for people experiencing domestic abuse with residents of Northamptonshire or with a recognised connection to the area being awarded a band A, the highest band, and all other people experiencing domestic abuse a band D. We believe that the proposals are consistent with legislation and comparable to other councils with housing responsibilities. We also believe that the scheme will be more open and transparent, not leading people to believe that they will be allocated housing when their priority is so low. We are also committed to the consultation. We will listen to the consultation. We've already undertaken an all-member briefing, of which we found some of the feedback extremely useful, particularly around foster carers and care experienced young people. And I know that this executive takes consultation extremely seriously. So we would encourage all residents and other stakeholders to please do contribute to the consultation. We do listen, and where appropriate amendments are made to the proposed policy, that will be considered by the executive at its meeting where it receives the consultation feedback. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much for that. Well, I support the proposed scheme and to proceed with the 6-week consultation. It is important that our scheme remains legally compliant and fit for purpose and supports those most in need. We have seen a significant increase in demand on the housing register, and there are just not enough homes to go round. We must manage expectations and focus resources on supporting those who do have a housing need. While those being removed from the housing register will be disappointed, it is important that they are provided with advice, and we will have the opportunity to talk about housing situations and ambitions, so we will help them. There are positive proposals here, increasing priority for our care leavers, which we believe is really important, and those in supported housing, recognising overcrowding and increasing bids for all applicants. The consultation will provide an opportunity for our residents and our partners to feed back on the proposals, which we will consider before the final scheme is adopted. We know that the demand for social housing is extremely high, but it is not the only solution for our residents. We need those that can consider other housing solutions, such as private renting or shared ownership, for example. The Council has a housing strategy that acknowledges the demand and supply issues that we have and what the Council are now doing about it. Thank you. I now open it up to other members. Councillor Brian Bennyworth.
Thank you, Chair. I'm pleased to second the proposed review of the Keyways housing allocation scheme. Firstly, I'd like to thank the officers who have worked diligently on bringing these proposals forward to the Executive today for consideration. This long overdue review represents a vital step in ensuring that our housing services remain fair, transparent, responsive to the evolving needs of our communities across Northamptonshire. The proposed changes are designed to prioritise those in the greatest housing need, streamlining processes and improving outcomes for applicants. By refining the eligibility criteria and focusing our resources on households facing the most acute challenges, such as care experienced young people, victims of domestic abuse, and those living in severely overcrowded conditions, we are reaffirming our commitment to delivering safe, secure, and appropriate housing. Importantly, the review also seeks to improve the customer experience, reduce administrative pressure, and make better use of our housing stock. These efficiencies will allow our teams to provide more targeted support and realistic advice to those navigating the housing system. I want to highlight that no decisions will be made without listening to the voices of our residents. This paper proposes a 6-week public consultation, and I encourage our residents, service users, stakeholders, and community partners to take part. Their feedback will be important in shaping the scheme and ensuring it reflects the values and priorities of Northamptonshire. Chair, this is a proactive and necessary step forward, and I look forward to working with colleagues and the wider community to deliver a housing allocation scheme that is fit for purpose, legally compliant, and rooted in fairness. Thank you.
And thank you for that, Councillor. Any other members wish to speak? Councillor Eddie MacDonald.
Thank you, Chair. Basically, while I've been out canvassing, etc., I've heard of many cases of overcrowding, where families have simply outgrown the living space provided, unfortunately, often coupled with other issues such as damp and mould within those houses. I think of these properties as homes, not simply places to live, but places to start and grow their families. I'm therefore pleased to see that within the proposal there are the ability for families who are lacking 2 or more bedrooms will receive additional priority on the housing register. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much for that. Other members? Councillor Elizabeth Wright.
Thank you, Chair. So I will be supporting the recommendation this morning so that the proposed Keyways housing allocation scheme can go out for public consultation. It's vital that residents, partners and stakeholders have the opportunity to give feedback before any final decisions are made. I do, however, want to place on record one particular area of focus during consultation. The proposed banding for care experienced young people distinguishes between those for whom Northamptonshire Council is the corporate parent, who would receive Band A, and those who have been placed here from another authority, who would fall into Band D. Whilst I absolutely recognise the need for clear and fair criteria, we must ensure that no young person leaving care is disadvantaged because of placement decisions made to keep them safe. National changes now remove local connection barriers for care leavers, and it's important that our final scheme fully reflects that intent. So I will be voting in favour today, but I look forward to seeing through the consultation how these proposals are tested, particularly around care leavers, to make sure the final scheme aligns with both fairness and our corporate parenting responsibilities. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Other members, please. Councillor Kirk-Harrison.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not sure how many people know, but I used to work in frontline housing. I used to help allocate people to the housing register. I used to help them and hopefully support the homelessness process. I've also got a great deal of experience working as an internal audit professional within the housing sector. I've actually seen firsthand how the pressures of the system can distort expectations. People with no housing needs can sit on the list for years with no realistic prospect of ever being housed. And that doesn't do anybody any favours. What matters here is that we're open, honest and fair with people, and that the scheme focuses on a real need and keeps us legally compliant. I feel like the scheme's helpful because it ensures that we signpost others to alternative housing options such as affordable rent or shared ownership. Now, if we handle the consultation sensitively, we can bring the public with us. There is a logic here that social housing should prioritise those with the greatest need. I do support the review of the scheme. I also support Councillor Conway's idea of a post-implementation review. I think that's important. It's a necessary but proportionate step. It'll improve transparency and manage people's expectations fairly. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Other members? Councillor Ken Harrington.
I think most of what's been said is what I would have said, but I'd just like to add that I do support proposals, and what I'm extremely glad to see is that only single people and married couples can bid for the one-bed properties. That is a necessary thing. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor Jan O'Hara.
Thank you, Chair. I welcome this, and I think as a corporate parent, I kind of echo what Elizabeth was saying in terms of the new policy reinforces our commitment to provide support to our care leavers to move into independent accommodation when it's ready. And I think that's so important that we enable people to become independent, and I think our policy is helping to do that because we're focusing on their needs and prioritising them. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much for that. Any other members? Can I just say that this administration will consult and it will listen to the consultation response. It is really, really important that we listen to the residents, especially on a matter of such importance as this. We've just undertaken a huge consultation with the public of Northamptonshire, which has helped create our excellent corporate plan as we move forward. So consultation is an important part of this administration. It is an important part of Northamptonshire, and we will be open and transparent and listen to our residents. So with that, the recommendations are set out on page 30 of the agenda pack. They have been moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Bennyworth. Please may I have a show of hands for those in favour.
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you very much for that. So now we move on to agenda item 6, the local transport plan, project plan and baseline report. I would like to invite Lynn Buckingham to address the meeting. Lynn, you are most welcome, and you have a maximum 3 minutes to make your statement. Thank you.
Just give me a moment, please.
We'll start the clock when you're ready.
Thank you. And whilst I don't mean to be, I've forgotten the word, but it happens at my time of life, so don't worry. Thank you. I'll be blunt. This report reads like a glossy sales brochure, not a plan to get people where they need to go. I'm here to call out the holes and ask the executive to fix them now. First, rural residents are invisible. The baseline lumps every settlement together and refuses to face the truth. Villages and small towns do not have the same transport markets as Corby or Kettering or Wellingborough. That isn't academic, it's little or isolation for older people, carers, low-income families and those who can't drive. I'd like to see a rural mobility framework added to the local transport plan by the next programme, and targets for route retention as part of the bus improvement plans. Second, home to school transport, it's missing. You can't prepare a credible local transport plan whilst ignoring the single biggest local cost driver in statutory duty area. Send pupils and school children are literally dependent on safe, reliable journeys. Produce the data, current costs, unmet needs, and a plan for post-16 gaps now. Third, disabled and social transport networks are an afterthought. There's no plan for community transport, dial-a-ride, volunteer drivers schemes or accessible taxis. That's a failure. Push inequalities impact screening before any further public consultation. Fourth, health connectivity is absent. Transport planning that ignores NHS patient travel, outpatient access and links to the Integrated Care Board is not strategic, it's negligent. I'd like to see a formal data sharing commitment with the ICB and a published appendix on health-related travel needs. Fifth, carbon claims without numbers is greenwash. You'll reference decarbonation and QCRS, but have no baseline emissions or quantified carbon reductions. Publish the quantifiable carbon reductions baseline for transport before policy options are final. Finally, governance. Where's the members' LTP forum? What's their remit? How often will Scrutiny see draft? Tokenism won't do. We need a standing oversight route with transparent terms of reference. If you want a plan that actually serves people, not a PR document, you'll meet these asks. If not, be honest, we'll hold you to it, and we'll make sure that the people missing from this baseline are heard loud and clear. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. I don't usually respond direct to speakers, but you mentioned about fixing holes. We're fixing holes everywhere across Northamptonshire on an unprecedented scale. So thank you very much for that. I'd like to now invite Dorothy Maxwell to address the meeting. Dorothy, you have a maximum of 3 minutes to make your statement.
Agenda item 6, local transport plan. I read with interest about the local transport plan. However, the results show that 146 had filled in the last consultation about local transport. What was the cost of this report? Since the age of this report, which was 2012, it seems that we have a lot of catching up to do. If we look at the buses, we clearly do not meet the needs of local people. Buses do not go to Northampton Railway Station or Wellingborough Railway Station. Why not? I carried out a research of bus timetables and issues when they're cancelled. My grandson had 2 buses cancelled from Kettering College to Islip. The students had to wait 2 hours for the next one. I picked him up. However, I looked for the electronic timetables on to check this out. I realised that we have 2 timetables in Wellingborough outside the college, one along Northampton Road, none in Rushden, Oundle or Thrapston. There are 3 in Kettering Town Centre, none at Rushden Lakes, which has 7 million people going there in a year. This is what the manager said last week. The bus shelters and bus stops are owned by NNC. I was not aware of this. Were you aware that NNC owning all the shelters and bus stops? Yet the public are not aware of this and left with some areas of having no shelters. That means finding out the bus has been cancelled. We are now 2025 and we need to be in the 21st century and get active. Every bus stop in Cambridge has an electronic bus timetable and clean bus shelters. Rushden Town Council purchased 4 to protect people in the rain. However, outside Asda is a disaster. It's not fit for purpose. Therefore, NNC need to look all these bus shelters and electronic timetables and come into the 21st century. Thank you for listening.
And thank you very much for that, Dorothy. I'd now like to invite George Kander, the Executive Director for Place and Economy, to introduce the report.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. As you'll see, the purpose of this report is threefold. Firstly, to provide information on progress to date with regards to the Northamptonshire Local Transport Plan. Secondly, to report on the findings from the recent consultation that took place at the beginning of this year to help inform the baseline report. And finally, to agree the programme and timelines for the development of the local transport plan, which constitutionally we have to do, and I'll touch on that shortly. So, just expanding slightly on the report, you'll see in section 4 that the local transport authorities, which we are one, falls under the Transport Act 2000, which requires us to publish a statutory plan setting out our transport policies, known as the Local Transport Plan. The Act, interestingly, doesn't actually set a timescale for updating the Local Transport Plan, but local authorities must keep their plans under review and alter it if they consider it appropriate to do so. And in terms of our own local transport plan, this was adopted by the former County Council back in 2012. In developing a new local transport plan, the Council has a statutory duty to follow guidance issued by government. However, the most recent guidance was published back in 2009. And whilst the government have promised further guidance, nothing has been forthcoming, although we are expecting it by the end of 2025. It's not considered appropriate to wait for this guidance before progressing the development of the new local transport plan for Northamptonshire. However, if that guidance does materialise as indicated before the end of the year, then we will take account of that new guidance as appropriate. In terms of any new guidance that is forthcoming, it's expected that it will require authorities to consider a range of government policies, and these are detailed in 4.5 and 4.6 of the report. The plan must also reflect the needs of the community, priorities and investment plans for the next 5 years plus. It will also be developed in line with our vision, the Big 50 vision, and our strategic policies as well, such as the corporate plan, which will be concluded in December, as we know, and the local development plan, local development framework, also known as the local plan, which will conclude at the end of 2026. Plans such as the bus service improvement plan and the local cycling and walking infrastructure plans, of which we've got 4, will also become part of a suite of support documents to the local transport plan. It should also be noted, and I referenced this earlier, that the transport plan is listed in part 3.1 of the Council's constitution as forming part of the wider policy framework for this Council, which means that the approval of the local transport plan is a matter for Council. Executive is responsible for agreeing draft local transport plan documents before they are referred to Council for formal adoption, and also within the Constitution under 3.3 it states that the authority must publish a timetable to produce the local transport plan, and this forms a key part of this report detailed at 5.4. As has already been mentioned, work on the preparation of the local transport plan has been delayed from that was originally envisaged, and we have previously taken a report to the Executive in July 2023 on the local transport plan. And that report had envisaged that the plan would be commenced in the summer of 2023 and adopted in autumn 2024. However, additional government priorities came into being, not least the bus service improvement plan, which had to be concluded within a set time frame, and that, alongside developing the internal resources, has led to this slight delay from that report in 2023. A baseline report for the local transport plan has been developed. That was in early 2025 and was subject to public engagement, which has already been referred to this morning, for a period of 5 weeks during February and March 2025. Details of that engagement is detailed in Appendix A attached to the report. The timetable, as you'll see, in 5.3 allows for 2 stages of public engagement and a formal consultation period. So there will be every opportunity for residents, elected members, businesses, town and parish councils to contribute several times as this evolves and develops. The development of the new local transport plan and its indicative timetable has also been considered by Scrutiny at the Place and Environment Scrutiny in September, and comments included the welcome addition of linking this to the Big 50 vision, our corporate plan and local plan, as well as other key strategies, and also consideration was asked to be given to engagement and timescales involved in completing the plan. And that concludes the overview of the report, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. And I'd now like to invite debate from the floor. Councillor Chris McGiffey.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, all. Can I first open by saying that I agree with much of the points raised by speakers. But I would also like to just reiterate that this is the start of a process, and a long overdue process. Last time we looked at this was the time of the London Olympics, so it's a little overdue, to say the least. Look, I know that transport is more than just getting people from A to B. It's about connecting communities, and it's about other opportunities that flow from that. The current transport plan, scripted in the age of steam and released about the time of Henry Ford's Model T, or indeed the London Olympics. A lot's changed since then, not only in technology, but in terms of the demand and our ability to be able to provide some of those services. This local transport plan will set out how we maintain what we have, add to that with other funding that we've managed to obtain, and improve, crucially, as detailed by the initial feedback from the baseline consultation, improve buses, and walking and wheeling and all those alternative means of transport. And I'm sure that the feedback from further consultation will underscore that. We therefore will underscore the work that's going on with the local cycling and walking infrastructure, as George has commented on, 4 of those now at an advanced stage, and as funding becomes available, they'll be implemented. Excuse me. The rollout of zero-emission buses forms part of this plan, and that is also signed off. We're using some of the extra funding that we won through the transport grant to look at resurrecting rural routes that have had to be withdrawn for commercial reasons, and supporting those providers with at least a foothold to begin to be able to look at re-providing those to assist in connecting those communities as detailed. It'll be shaped by the Big 50 vision and our wider strategic goals, so that everybody and every journey supports a cleaner and safer and more inclusive future for Northamptonshire, and I commend it to the Chamber. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other members wish to speak? Councillor Ken Harrington.
I'd like to second this, if I may, Chair. I found this absolutely fascinating reading through this. Would you believe that I didn't believe until recently that the current LTP was adopted by the former Northamptonshire County Council, and it was actually adopted as long ago as 2012. You couldn't make that up, really, could you? And we now have to reflect on the needs of our communities for the next 5 years, which takes us up to 2030. And we will do that with the vision of the Big 50. I note and support the approach to build a transport plan that reflects the voices of our residents. The consultations earlier this year gave us valuable insights, and it's vital that we engage with communities as we shape a plan that meets local needs, supports growth, and improves everyday life for everyone in Northamptonshire. Now, we are supposed to follow guidance from the government, but the most recent guidance was given in 2009. Would you believe that? And even to this day, we still have no new guidance on LTPs. So we cannot wait indefinitely. We must now move forward. I fully support and second the motion. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Harrington. I'm going to ask a question of Councillor McGiffin. Okay. So Mrs. Maxwell has phoned me on several occasions about the problems with the bus shelters outside a supermarket, a well-known supermarket in Rushden. And I also know that Dorothy has raised this on a number of occasions as a time as a councillor for Northamptonshire. Can we please, I've copied you in, Councillor, can we please take her concerns forward? Because I think the time is right.
I wouldn't disagree, thank you, Chair. I didn't know. I drive past as frequently. I'm a Rushden resident, and on the way home tonight, I shall take a view. But thank you, Dorothy, and let's stay in touch. It doesn't sound beyond the wit of man, does it?
Thank you very much for that. Happy then for Councillor McGiffin to move, Councillor Ken Harrington to second. Maybe have a show of hands for those in favour.
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you ever so much for that. So now we move on to item number 7, and that is the Kettering Leisure Village Ongoing Management Funding Agreement. I'd like to invite Councillor Steve Geary. I can't see. Oh, there he is. Hello, Steve. Sorry, I didn't see you at the back there. I'd like to invite you to address the meeting. Councillor Geary, you have a maximum of 3 minutes to make your statement. Thank you.
Morning. I recognise there's extended agreements. Good morning. I recognise there's an extended agreement that's proposed of 10 years to offer additional stability to arena sports, the council and residents. And in the agreement also recognised that we've limited any annual increases to 5% RPI. And also recognised that the council has responded to previous local campaigns and efforts to maintain the sports facilities in the past. Of course, there's a however. And my howevers include the residents have had a relatively limited time to respond to this report and to express the level of opinion and emotion behind this particular facility. Secondly, to try and increase the confidence and transparency amongst residents, may I make a suggestion that in more quarterly and annual conversations with Arena Sport and with PLML, that we have an elected NNC representative who happens to live on the St. Peter Ward area to make sure that we have a demonstration of our transparency and willingness to work with the providers, and it would allow a more open and a superior level of feedback over and beyond what we're already achieving. On the topic of clarity, in the report, PLML are mentioned as requiring to become a proactive provider, and I encourage that, and to work to align their service provision with the aims of this plan, and again, I welcome that. What I'd like to see more of is a more concrete demonstration of what we actually mean by that in terms of concrete proposals and concrete hard facts. It's a great intention and one that I think we all share. What now needs to happen are definable things that we hold ourselves to account for, and that again would help with residents' confidence that we're managing the facility in the best possible way. Also, which could potentially be quite exciting, we're looking to PLML to start to deliver provisions of activities which go beyond fitness for the fit, but services such as activity on referral and other such services to support the public health agenda. We're becoming far more creative in how we use these facilities, and we want to encourage residents to support these and become more active. And again, I'd be very, very interested to find out what that actually means. I think it's very important that we define things and hold ourselves to those things, because that encourages us to work to the best possible efforts, get the best possible return on the investment that we've made collectively.
20 seconds.
And a 10-year agreement can offer the council, PLML and residents a solid longer-term platform. Now we have the opportunity to clarify and ensure that PLML become a proactive and valuable council partner.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Geary. I forgot to mention, I do apologise, that we've got our visitors from Kettering Leisure Village here today. You are very welcome, and thank you for taking the time to visit us. Hold on. So I'd now like to invite Martin Shepherd to address the meeting. Mr. Shepherd, you have a maximum of 3 minutes to make your statement.
Thank you, Chair, members of the Executive. My name is Martin Shepherd. I've been a Kettering resident for 36 years, a father of 5, grandfather of 4, all local, and a member of KCLP. Kettering Leisure Village is not just another facility on our asset list. It's a beating heart of our community. It represents over 30 years of investment in people's health, their well-being and their sense of belonging. When KLV was built in '92, it wasn't simply to create a sports complex. For us, it was a promise that local people would always have access to quality leisure, fitness and cultural opportunities right here, there in Kettering. When the threat of closure emerged in '23, the response of the public was immediate and overwhelming. Thousands of residents, sports clubs, schools, local businesses made their voices heard. They told us that Kettering Leisure Village is essential, not optional. It's where young people find purpose, older residents find connection, and families come together in ways that build healthier, stronger communities. That reaction wasn't just about sport or public theatrical performances. It was about what this place means to people, inclusion, opportunity, and pride in where they live. Like many parents, I've spent hours watching my children take part in sporting endeavours, basketball, football in particular, and many, many hours next door in the theatre doing the same with dance, singing and performance. It's a place where so many of our residents have spent countless formative hours growing up, practicing skills and teamwork, and making friendships that will last a lifetime. We all know the pressures that residents face, rising costs of living, health inequalities, and a decline in social spaces. Facilities like Kettering Leisure Village help us tackle all of these at once. Every hour spent in the sports hall, every rehabilitation session, every walking football game, every dance and theatre school performance contributes to better physical and mental health, reducing long-term demand on the NHS and social care budgets. These are savings that don't always appear on a balance sheet, but they're real and they're profound. The new management agreement before you today provides a necessary framework to secure KLV for the next decade. But I urge the Executive to see this not merely as a contract renewal, but as a commitment to the people of Kettering and to the vision of our active communities strategy. This is our opportunity to ensure that the facilities remain accessible and affordable to everyone, regardless of age, ability or income. That investment in maintenance and renewal is matched by ambition for greener, more inclusive and more modern spaces, and that the community continues to have a voice in shaping how Kettering Leisure Village evolves. So as you consider this report and the funding agreement, I ask you to remember what's really at stake. This isn't about an operator or a lease. It's about safeguarding a place that defines what community means in Kettering. Let's ensure Kettering Leisure Village continues to serve, inspire and unite our residents for the next generation, just as it has for the last 3 decades. I must leave you now. I have a date with my granddaughter Everly at KLV. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, and what a fantastic speech. I'd now like to invite Lynn Buckingham to address the meeting. Lynn, you have a maximum of 3 minutes to make your statement.
Thank you very much again. Chair, members, let's call this what it is. We're about to sign off on a £5 million deal for a facility that the council doesn't actually control. KLV might be leased, but make no mistake, the liabilities sit squarely on our books until 2116. We're paying the bills, carrying the risk, yet the operator holds the key. That's not partnership, that's dependency. Yes, the arena is a vital community asset. Nobody disputes that. It keeps people active, connected, and off the NHS waiting list. But what we're agreeing tonight locks us in for another decade, with no competitive tests, no clear performance clawback, and only a 5% inflation gap standing between prudence and another runaway subsidy. The so-called capital investment plan totals barely £500,000 over 7 years, mostly paint, signage and pigeon netting. That's not strategic investment, that's housekeeping. Meanwhile, we're writing off £5 million of public money funded from the leisure service budget with no public consultation, no equality reassessment and no independent verification that this operator can deliver the council's new active communities objective beyond good intentions and glossy KPIs. Let's also remember the recent history when Compass Leisure walked in 2023. The community reaction was ferocious because people cared deeply about this site. That passion deserves transparency and accountability, not another closed-door rollover. It would be good to see annual public reporting of outcomes, not just monitoring meetings behind the scenes. A mid-term break review at 5 years, not 10, so that we are not stuck if performance dips. A formal equality assessment would also be good, and a clear contingency plan if Phoenix Leisure fails. We cannot be left holding the legal bag again. Chair, nobody's against supporting sport and well-being. That's a given. But stewardship means asking tough questions before signing long cheques. The deal needs sharper governance, measurable outcomes and daylight, because if we're spending millions to rent access to our own community, we'd better make sure every pound works as hard for the people using it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Lynn. And 2023 is never far away from my memory, to be quite honest with you. Now I'd like to invite Councillor Jim Hakewell to address the meeting. Councillor Hakewell, you have a maximum of 3 minutes to make your statement.
Thank you, Chairman, for allowing me to come and to speak to you and the Executive. I agree with the proposals and I'm pleased that we're taking such a proactive approach to not only maintaining this contract, but enhancing it and keeping this valued facility available for the communities in Northamptonshire. I have a long time stake in the KLV and I'm very positive about this report tonight and the future, maybe unlike some. I probably sound like a broken record, but I'm proud to say that I was on the council and on the planning committee when the facility was given planning permission and subsequently built in 1990-91. When the innovative and very economic construction of the Lighthouse Theatre was completed, I was finance portfolio holder on Kettering Borough Council's executive. And further still, Chairman, I was mayor when Volleyball England were invited and motivated to come and invest in the KLV facilities, coinciding with the 2012 Olympics. Councillor McGiffin makes that particular point, and Councillor Harrington did, with reference to the last item. Not even I, Chair, was on the County Council in 2012. It was just a year before. So I admit that. But I would love a Model T Ford. That would be an absolute dream. When there was a threat to the continuing viability and existence of the overall facilities in 2023, it was a shock to the community, and there was a feeling from the political leadership at that time, Chairman, you'll remember, that it was a private conference centre and not the remit of the council to step in. A Save the KLV campaign ensued, and from being on the back foot, confidence was achieved in the sustainability of the facilities by working with the leaseholders constructively. I'm delighted to see that we're now in a position to agree new terms, albeit only on part of the facilities at this time, and that the portfolio holder, Councillor Bennyworth, and the executive is working proactively and engaging with the team running the facilities to have an ongoing dialogue, which is important to ensure the sustainability and availability of the centre for the community, and that's the wider community too. So, Chairman, I will continue to contribute my knowledge of the past as decisions in the future are considered and made, but I very much support the actions for today. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Hakewell. I'd now like to invite Jane Bethea, the Director of Public Health, Communities and Leisure, to introduce this report. Jane.
Thank you, Chair. And I'd just like to respond to some questions initially and comments. The first thing I'd say is that there's such a passion for KLV. And I've been here 2 years and came in just after the last issue we really had with KLV. And it's been really apparent to me from day one that this is something that people care hugely about. It's a site I go to quite regularly for various reasons, and we've had so much investment that's going on at KLV site, so that the wider site to include the new 3G pictures and all the stuff that's going on. There's so much energy there. I'd also like to give everybody just assurance of our really positive relationship with our colleagues at Phoenix Leisure who manage the site. I do think there's so much opportunity for us to work together really proactively, and we do, Councillor Buckingham, carefully monitor our working and contract manage what we're doing with Phoenix Leisure. But I think it's a really positive conversation we have about the art of the possible. And as we go forward, what else could we do? I was really pleased to hear Councillor Geary talk about the public health opportunity here. I'm Director of Public Health, I'm bound to say this, but there's so much opportunity for us to do more in that space. So Councillor Geary mentioned activity on referral. We've got some brilliant schemes across Northamptonshire that are really helping do that kind of public health messaging and do the active community stuff that we want to do. This gives us more opportunity. Also to link in our Get Up and Go initiatives, which is helping people around falls prevention and helping some of our more elderly and more vulnerable residents as well. It's the beginning. It's the beginning of what we can do in this really positive partnership. I was really interested to hear from Mr. Shepherd, and at one point thought, I wonder if he'd consider a career in public health. He sounds like he's one of my team already, which was great. And I think lots of us here have done that, where, I mean, I've spent so many hours by football pitches, rugby pitches, other side of swimming pools, so all the stuff that's really important to our communities. And it's great to hear that community voice and support for something that's so important to our local communities. And it's great for our colleagues at Phoenix Leisure to hear that too, because I think that's a really good testament to all the hard work that's going on at that site. Just also to pick up a few other issues around our relationship going forward. So we will make sure that we've got really clear deliverables around that, and we want to give assurances on that as well. And we do also want to make sure that that site looks really appealing and it's got all the right facilities there, and that's part of the capital programme that I'll come on to in a moment. So I think I've covered most of the points. If I haven't, apologies, and Councillor Geary, if there's any points that I haven't covered, we will do those in writing as well. So, just to introduce the report, the first thing I was going to say is that KLV is a really valuable asset, but I don't think I need to say that, because I think we're pretty all clear on that in terms of what's offered locally. But for me, it's also really important just to reiterate, it's really important. We've made a big commitment as a council, both through the health and wellbeing strategy, but also through the active community strategy, that keeping active, being part of your community, and really using facilities like KLV is really part of what we want our residents to enjoy and to support going forward. So this report seeks to enter into a new management agreement with Phoenix Leisure Management, who operate Kettering Leisure Village under the terms of the underlease since April 2000. And as Mrs. Buckingham has already pointed out, we are in an arrangement with that site until 2116. We don't hold the freehold for the site, but we are the leaseholder, and as we know, we have sublet that to Phoenix Leisure, and that lease, as I mentioned, does continue to 2116. We have got an ability through a break clause to review the agreement, and what we are proposing, as laid out in the report, is that we will work with our colleagues at Phoenix Leisure to ensure a few really key areas of activity. One is that there will be some upgrades to the site, and they are outlined in the paper, and that we make sure that we are really making sure that's a really good opportunity and facility for our local residents. We also want to really pull that site into the Active Communities Partnership. KLV are a really important stakeholder in that, so there's really good opportunities to do that. And also to make sure we're expanding those key initiatives that I've mentioned already that really are about ensuring the health and well-being of our local population. We're really committed to the arrangement, and we have a really positive relationship with Phoenix Leisure. And it's important that we point out now that this has been done in discussion with our colleagues who are sitting behind me. And I'm sorry, if I turn around, I lose the microphone, so I'm sorry I'm pointing at you. And there is agreement on that and a lot of positivity. We're also, as has also been mentioned, proposing a cap on annual inflation reindexation at 5% so that it's also affordable going forward as well. The new agreement will be reviewed after a period of 10 years. This is a typical arrangement if a council were contracting out with a leisure facility. And of course, it's really important for us that we're giving Phoenix Leisure that certainty for the investment that they are showing to our local community. And as such, Chair, I would like to propose the recommendations in the report, and I think this is the start of a really fantastic period for Kettering Leisure Village and a real collaboration between us and the provider to get a really strong, fabulous offer for the people of Kettering.
Thank you very much for that. I'd now like to invite debate from the floor. Councillor Brian Benworth.
Thank you, Chair, and I forgot to say good morning to everybody, so I'll say it now. I think Jane's covered very much of what I was going to say, but Kettering Leisure Village is very dear to my heart. I was there when the spades went in the ground in the early 90s, and I've participated in many activities and managed to lose quite a lot of weight in the gym and enjoy many performances at the theatre. So I'm extremely pleased to support this proposal for the ongoing management of the Arena Sports contract of our much loved and valued Kettering Leisure Village. This secures community access to high quality sports facilities for the next decade. This agreement delivers clear benefits. It supports health, well-being and sustainability, all of which are key components of the Big 50 vision for Northamptonshire. It includes a credible capital investment plan to improve the facility and protect it for future generations. It introduces new performance indicators to ensure accountability, service quality and transparency. And it provides financial protection to the council through a 5% cap on RPI annual increases. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank our NNC officers for their diligent work in the contract review and extend sincere appreciation to the negotiating team at Phoenix Leisure Management. So thank you very much, guys, for their constructive, supportive and collaborative approach throughout the negotiations. Chair, I commend this agreement to the Executive.
Thank you very much for that. Any other members? I'm going to ask Councillor Kirk Harrison.
Thank you very much, Chair. I actually wasn't going to speak on this, but I couldn't let the opportunity go by without adding my voice of support to what we're doing here. I remember when Kettering Leisure Village was first built. I was very excited. I used to catch the bus from my house, and I used to go swimming. I used to go and play quasar, bowling, ice skating. To me, it was the greatest place on earth. And there was not a video game or a mobile phone inside. It was wonderful. I was actually quite moved by our public speaker, Mr. Shepherd. I agree wholeheartedly with what he said. I think the activities that go on at Kettering Leisure Village even now contribute so much to both our physical and our mental health. I've even taught spin classes myself at the gym, just around the back there. Sorry, I've just lost where I'm supposed to be. I think we should go on supporting this for as long as it makes sense to do so. For me, this is the beating heart of a community, and I'm fully behind it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Harrison. Councillor Jan O'Hara.
Thank you, Chair. As you can imagine, I fully support this. I love my football and actually I love paddleboarding as well, but we'll get onto that at another point. But I've spent many hours down there teaching football and actually the recent opening of the new sports facilities in terms of the refurbished 3G artificial sports pitch is absolutely brilliant. I think Martin and I enjoyed a game with I think it was the Moresby girls team, wasn't it? We were having a few shots at, which was brilliant, and had an amazing goalkeeper there as well, kept a few of our shots out. But also the fact that we've refurbished all that, and it just makes it top quality facilities down there for our residents. I think also with the active community strategy, it's also emphasised that the Council's commitment to working towards the high quality sustainable leisure facilities that support the delivery of the active community strategic framework and the health and well-being of our communities is just paramount. We are really future-proofing Northants by providing and supporting this facility, and I thank our partners for helping us do this. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much for that, and yeah, I'm still quite ashamed that my penalty kick was saved by a 13-year-old female goalkeeper. I blame the footwear that I was wearing, and I look forward to paddleboarding taking place on the nearby lake in due course. Maybe that can be looked at as a possibility. Any other members wish to add their contribution? Thank you ever so much. So the recommendations are set out on page 189 of the agenda pack. They've been moved and seconded. Please may I have a show of those in favour.
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you very much for that. And so we move on rapidly now to agenda item 8, which is the Northamptonshire Statement of Community Involvement. And I would like to invite Councillor David Brackenbury to address the meeting. David, you have a maximum of 3 minutes to make your statement. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, everybody. First, I'm just referring to the last item. I'm just congratulating so many members of the executive on their athleticism, if not necessarily their accuracy in taking penalty kicks. It's been an interesting meeting, Chair, because one of the themes which has underpinned the whole discussion today has been that of community involvement and that of consultation. Which brings us very neatly to the importance of this document, the Statement of Community Involvement. This is basically the consultation framework which underpins all the preparation work for the local plan. Of course, I welcome the requirements of the Statement of Community Involvement and the concomitant underlying requirements that communities are properly consulted on strategic development, which will culminate in the formulation of a sound and workable local plan. And as you know, Chair, the delivery of this local development scheme is up against a very tight timescale because of the government's requirement that it has to be submitted to the Secretary of State by the end of 2026. So in that regard, I would welcome confirmation from the portfolio holder that that is still on track. It is disappointing, though, to note the requirement for a statement of community involvement is being abolished by the government, and as is usual with the government at the moment, while the requirement to consult may be being abolished, the methodology of any replacement to that SCI has not yet been articulated. With the much more permissive planning environment set out in the Planning and Infrastructure Bill, the need to work with communities so that growth can be managed with their involvement is vital. No community likes things being done to them without adequate consultation, as recent inconsistent planning decisions have shown. So I welcome the planning policy team's decision to review this document now rather than waiting for fresh government guidance, and I'm grateful, as always, for their patience and hard work with all the pressures that they're facing in that area at this time. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Brackenbury. I'd now like to invite Councillor Jim Hakewell to address the meeting. Councillor Hakewell, you have a maximum of 3 minutes to make your statement.
Thank you once again, Chairman, for allowing me to speak to you. To start my comments, I'd like to quote from your own papers, and that is page 4 of the policy and page 214 of the agenda pack. And there it says, the planning system touches the lives of everyone across Northamptonshire. However, for many of us, we come into contact with it only when we find out about a nearby planning application. What is often not known is that the planning application also has to fit in to a wider plan for the area. However, what is always the case is that for any plans we produce and any planning applications that are submitted to us to determine, we need to consult and engage with people and organisations in making our decisions. I make no apology for quoting that, because I think in terms of the meeting it's good for people to hear that and see it online. So it is, Chairman, so true that engaging communities at the strategic stage of planning is crucial and actually very difficult. As councillors, we've all experienced the volume of phone calls and emails when a sign offering houses for sale goes up and diggers make a new entrance onto land that the wider community wasn't expecting to be built on. It's always uncomfortable again as councillors to explain, I'm sorry that the policy decisions were made at a strategic level many years ago and nothing can be done to change that in terms of lobbying us as councillors or the authority. So engagement at this earliest stage is absolutely crucial. And part of that engagement is 78 councillors. You know, we are effectively marketeers for what the council is doing, and we need to go out and explain that to communities who I think are much more willing to accept that we need more housing, because we do, and more industry, but much better that they're aware. And I know, Chairman, I'm sure you've expressed that with the Chief Executive and others. No surprises. And nor do the communities want surprises as what's coming up on the agenda. So this statement of community involvement can be a catalyst, a real catalyst for even greater community awareness of development proposed, and I completely endorse it. Very happy to see it going forward and very happy to work as a councillor under its conditions. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your support and comments. I'd now like to invite George Kander, the Executive Director for Place and Economy, to introduce this report. George.
Thank you, Chair. This report essentially is seeking agreement from Executive this morning to adopt Northamptonshire's Statement of Community Involvement, and you'll see that is included in full and attached as Appendix A within the report. In terms of just expanding slightly on the main body of the report, the first thing to highlight is it's a statutory requirement under planning legislation for the council as the local planning authority to have an adopted statement of community involvement. Crucially, the purpose of the statement of community involvement is to set out a consultation framework, as Councillor Brackenbury was alluding to earlier, and to highlight what consultation will take place with the community on both planning policy documents, again, which have been referred to this morning, but also planning applications, day-to-day planning applications. And principally, it sets out who the council will consult with, when they will consult with them in the planning process, and how it should be carried out. The current Statement of Community Involvement was first adopted in 2022. It was our first Statement of Community Involvement for this particular council. In terms of the more granular detail of what the Statement of Community Involvement covers, this is covered in the report under 4.2, 4.3 and 4.5. But as you'll see, is around consultation and engagement activities around both the plan making process, which again has been referenced earlier, as well as all planning applications that we receive here at the council. It also sets out the advice and assistance that the council will provide to communities in relation to neighbourhood plans, of which we have many, I'm pleased to say, across Northamptonshire, and also neighbourhood development orders. It also is used for consultation on emerging development plans and also highlights the periods for consultation and dealing with responses with regards to these. In terms of the development proposals and planning applications, the Statement of Community Involvement provides a guide to the various types of application types that you'll see in Appendix A, and the publicity and consultation measures used to notify and engage on proposals for consideration. In terms of the future approach, which is again was alluded to by Councillor Brackenbury earlier, the government's planning reforms under the Levelling Up and Regeneration Act 2023 indicate that the requirement to prepare a statement of community involvement will actually disappear. But the need for community engagement, crucially, and a plan for this won't. At present, no further guidance has been published to indicate what that expectation is in terms of a replacement, but we are hoping for that again towards the end of this year. That said, it's been decided to bring a revised statement of community involvement to members to be clear on the council's strategy with consultation on planning matters, knowing how important they are to our residents and our businesses across Northamptonshire. And then what we can do is review where necessary, update our approach when we receive the further guidance once it's been published. In terms of Statement of Community Involvements, it's stated that a refresh of some areas is considered helpful after 3 years, and this keeps our commitment following the 2022 adoption, our commitment to consultation and engagement, which Councillor Hakewell was referring to, very much front and centre of what we do as a local authority, but also as enabling us to update and add some clarity to the original one that was first adopted in 2022 with this additional update that's before you this morning. In terms of scrutiny, we recognise the importance that this needed to go to scrutiny in advance of executive, so that was considered on the 23rd of September, and scrutiny flagged a number of comments and concerns which officers will clearly want to factor into our future planning, and you can see those detailed under 7.6 of the report. So thank you, Chair. That concludes the overview of this particular report.
Thank you for that report. I'd now like to invite member debate from the floor. Councillor O'Hara.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just say thank you, George? That was a fantastic overview. And I don't really need to say an awful lot. But I just want to say thank you to our officers for being forward-thinking and really outward-looking and our commitment for clarity and support of our residents in doing this. I can also confirm, really, that we will continue to work towards the local plan timetable, and also thank you to Jim for your comments. The statement of community involvement is a vital part of our planning framework. It ensures that our local plan and neighbourhood planning processes are shaped by local voices and reflect the priorities of our communities. And this is really, really important. This is how we build our connected and resilient places across Northamptonshire, and we're mindful of people's need for open spaces and homes for fit for purpose, and that we're future-proofing Northamptonshire. We know planning can be complex, but our statement of community involvement makes it clearer. It outlines how we'll consult on our plans and applications, and how we'll be able to support our communities in developing their neighbourhood plans where it's possible. It's a practical guide to help residents engage confidently and constructively with the planning system, so that we can build vibrant places that support our communities now and in the future. And I really do commend the work that's been done on this. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. And my experience in local plans and planning goes back almost 2 decades. And I remember with fondness the days of the Joint Planning Unit, where Councillor Brackenbury and Councillor O'Hara and myself spent many, many hours in meetings. And as a result of that work, many thousands of people call Northamptonshire their home and their place. The timescales are tight. Let's be under no illusion. But I think if everybody rolls up their sleeves, we can deliver this. So I'm pleased to support this item. Planning isn't just about buildings, it's about people. The statement of community involvement ensures that our residents have a clear voice in shaping the places that they live, work and enjoy. We're committed to meaningful consultation and empowering communities to take part in planning decisions that affect them. Our planning system is fundamental to shaping the place we all want to create and live in. Planning is a cornerstone to our Big 50 vision and our communities. It's essential that we listen to our residents when making decisions that affect the places they live. I commend the approach towards consultation set out in the statement of community involvement. Any other members wish to contribute? Okay, so the recommendations are set out in page 204 of the agenda pack. Happy for Jan to approve. I'm happy to second. Can I have a show of hands for those in favour?
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you ever so much for that. So now we come on to agenda item 9, which is the Scrutiny Executive Protocol 2025. Firstly, I'd like to invite Councillor Trevor Conway to address the meeting. As Chair of the Place and Environmental Scrutiny Committee, Councillor Conway, you have your allotted time to speak to this paper.
Thank you, Chair. The Scrutiny Management Board met on 22nd of September, and after discussion regarding the Scrutiny Executive Protocol 2025, we are very happy to have approved this protocol. The purpose of the protocol being to steer the conduct of business between the scrutiny and executive functions, and is built on the principles of transparency, accountability and collaboration. It also outlines the practical steps and procedures to reinforce a respectful and productive relationship that reflects a shared commitment to strong governance, informed decision making and delivering high quality services. Scrutiny is an essential element of the executive model of decision making. It is therefore very important that all councillors and officers understand the functions of scrutiny so that we can fulfil our statutory role in a positive way. This protocol will achieve this. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I'd now like to invite Councillor Jim Hakewell to address the meeting. Jim, you have a maximum of 3 minutes to make your statement.
Once again, Chairman, thank you for letting me address you on this particular item. I'm personally delighted that so early in the new term of the Council that we've created a clear executive scrutiny protocol. Thanks to our scrutiny officer team and the scrutiny management board for putting this on the council's agenda and before the executive team today. Whilst it is all pretty straightforward for those of us elected to the council, although maybe not all, it does give a clear set of guidelines for any other interested parties, and it also lays out a very clear direction for all councillors as to how they can engage with scrutiny and to engage early, not at this point, for example, right at the end of the process when you and colleagues are making final decisions. I couldn't make this statement without reiterating the point that as a council, we need to find a way of condensing agendas without losing the main thrust of the background to decisions that we make. Today's agenda pack being 250 pages. I admit here, and it'd be interesting to find others, I haven't read 250 pages. I've glanced, and to be fair, executive summaries are helpful, but we do have to find a way of doing that without losing the contact with those people who are not online and so on. Don't know how we do that, but it will make for much better scrutiny if we don't have quite that task of reading. And that's not different from scrutiny committees. It is well worth reaffirming that early scrutiny of items coming for the executive for decision is really important. And as we all get better used to working with each other, I hope that we can engage in more internal and external scrutiny of future decisions rather than past ones. But overall, really pleased to see this come to the executive, and I fully endorse it as chair of corporate scrutiny. Thank you again.
Thank you very much for that. I'd now like to invite Camilla Coulson-Patel, Director of Law and Governance, to introduce this report. Camilla.
Thank you. It's been accepted this morning and acknowledged that scrutiny plays an essential element in the executive model of decision making, and this should be promoted as a positive way to fulfil its statutory role. Today, executive are recommended to approve the Scrutiny Executive Protocol. This reflects the expected working agreements, defines the roles and the relationships that have been developed as part of the ongoing work to improve the effectiveness of scrutiny. It applies to all councillors, executive and scrutiny, as well as the wider membership. It also extends to officers, and we've heard external stakeholders who may attend and participate in scrutiny activity. The protocol sets out 4 clear ambitions, which are detailed at paragraph 4.4 of the report. To summarise those 4 points, it's to maximise the effectiveness of the Council's decision-making structure, promote a culture of mutual respect, trust and courtesy, support focus and transparent decision-making, and to enable the training and development of scrutiny councillors. The protocol draws on best practice, and there are several principles that both scrutiny and executive councillors would be expected to endorse, which are detailed in the report at paragraphs 4.6. This report, as members have heard, was previously considered by the Scrutiny Management Board on the 22nd of September and recommended for approval. It's today presented to Executive to approve the Scrutiny Executive Protocol, shown at Appendix A, and that's pages 235 to 246. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much for that. So this protocol is welcome, reflecting best practice, and it's clearly setting out the roles and expectations of the working arrangements between the executive and scrutiny. As an executive and wider as a council, we aim to promote a culture of mutual respect, trust and courtesy to ensure open and constructive debate with a focus of evidence and outcomes. This protocol documents this commitment and reflects the local arrangements which are embedded in it. I would like to thank members of the scrutiny for their support of this protocol, and I'm confident that this will be welcomed by members of the executive today. And I won't apologise for again mentioning yesterday's peer review visit, where scrutiny was mentioned in a very positive manner. So you're starting to get little feedbacks about yesterday's meeting. We've just got to wait a few weeks for the final report. So enough from me. Over to Councillor Harrison. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much, Chair. Everyone loves a good governance protocol, don't they? This one's really worth it, I promise. I'm actually quite excited to see the report and to second it. Somewhere else I used to work, Democratic Services. I spent a long time there. I had some very memorable years working within the Democratic Services team. And I've seen scrutiny at its best, and I've seen scrutiny at its worst. At its best, it has engaged members who are non-political, or at least leave politics at the door. There's a creative approach, and there's a distinct added value to what they do. At its worst, there's infighting, political point scoring, aimless discussion without a plan, and it's ignored by the administration and considered a talking shop amongst members. I agree, however, with Councillor Conway and with the sentiments of many others. I believe that scrutiny is absolutely essential to the well-working of a council. This protocol sets the tone for that scrutiny as mature, constructive and non-political. It strengthens our governance and it defines how we interact with one another. And I actually don't think that ought to be limited to scrutiny. I think we ought to utilise that across the council. I think it's important that we share information early, as Councillor Hakewill alluded to. Key executive decisions can be scrutinised and well tested before implementation. If this is embraced, scrutiny could become one of the most valuable cultural aspects of not just this administration, but the council's entire governance framework, and a staple of real, genuine cross-party working. I'd like to say thank you to the Democratic Services team and others for pulling the report and the protocol together, and for to the Scrutiny Management Board for their hard work. I am very pleased to second this report. Thank you.
Doesn't leave me an awful lot to add, so I'm delighted to propose the report as detailed on page 232 and the recommendation therein, and Councillor Harrison to second. Can I have a show of hands for all those in favour?
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you very much for that. Urgent items of business. I can confirm that I have received no requests to consider any urgent items of business at this meeting. I would like to thank those members, officers and the public who have been in attendance, including those that have watched online via our YouTube channel. I would now like to declare the meeting closed and thank you very much for your attendance. Thank you. Bye-bye.